Alright, it's time to continue our wacky hijinks. Or hijink, I suppose. I also was wondering who managed to kill Snake, because it seems like the other two would have to add up to one. So that'd have to be, like, say, Lotus and Snake, which is obviously impossible. Seven and Santa, Clover and June, and I don't know what other combinations, but who would have let him through? I don't know. Or else they pulled him through before the guts were in, and then they put in the guts, and once the guts were activated, then he got explode. I don't know. Anyway, outside of the shower room was a hallway that extended off to the left and right. That looks only to the right to me. The right end was a large iron door. They moved a few steps toward the door, and Junpei heard the sound of metal on metal. Again, they turned around. Seven was doing something to the door of the shower room. What are you doing, Seven? Figure maybe we might want to come back here sometime. So I stuck the broom in there to keep the door from shutting. Alright, let's go. Daddy stood up and began walking down the hallway. He brushed past Junpei and kept going. He did that before, too. What a weird guy. After a moment, the rest of them followed him. Before long, they found themselves at the large iron door. They'd only been there for a moment when June spoke up. Jumpy, look. He turned. There, on the right side of the hallway, was a piece of paper attached to the wall. Junpei ran over and peeled it off. Why would you do that, you ass? It's a map of the ship's interior. It said sea deck on the upper left corner. From what he could tell, it was a map of the floor they were on. There would be time to look at it later. Junpei folded the map and stuffed it back into his pockets. The large iron door goes back to the hospital room, it looks like. Back of the door, the four of them lined up in front of it. Santa stepped forward. He grabbed hold of the door and then turned to look at the rest of them. Ready? I'm going to open it. They nodded. Santa nodded back and threw the door open. I hope that's the door they were standing at. All four of them leapt through. It took only a moment for them to realize where they were. They had been there only a short time ago. Fuck yes. It was the large hospital room filled with countless beds. Lotus and Clover looked up as they entered. Ace was there as well, although he looked as though he had only just woken up. The moment they spotted Junpei, Lotus and Clover headed straight for him. As she neared him, Lotus drew back her hand. Oh shit! And slapped him open palm across the face. How could you do this to us? Her face was furious. She grabbed Junpei by the collar and shook him violently. Clover didn't touch him, but the hate in her eyes was no less potent. It was Seven who stopped him. Knock it off. We've got bigger shit to worry about right now. His deep voice echoed across the massive room. Lotus glared at Seven, but let Junpei go after one last vicious shake. What? Go have a look. I stuck the screwdriver in the door. I thought it was the broom. That door over there, the one without a number. As long as the screwdriver's there, it can't shut, so you can get in there. Seven also explained how they might find the shower room and how he'd use the broom to ensure that the door remained open as well. And you're saying we can go in there without passing through the numbered door? Yeah, that's about the size of it. What the hell is in there? You'll know when you see it. Lotus and Clover looked at one another for a moment, then nodded and stepped through the door. By then, Ace has made his way to them, moving with the stiff, shuffling steps of someone who has only just woken up from a lengthy slumber. My goodness. I know so sure he'd come back from there. I didn't think we'd have a little hill now. Ace shook his head weakly. Seven nodded. Yeah, send a drugged up dude to go see a corpse. You're fucking awesome, Seven. Ace followed Lotus and Clover with a stiff, tired gait. Multiple dots. The squeal of tortured metal made Junpei's teeth curl. It sounded like the noise a ghost would make. No matter how many times he heard it, he never got used to it. Every time, it put him on edge. It didn't help that there was a girl nearby who looked far more like a ghost than a living human should. It was Clover. She sat on the edge of the bed, her head drooping listlessly onto her chest. Her eyes were blank and stared across the room at nothing. Her breathing was slow and mechanical. Aside from the rise and fall of her chest, she didn't move. Junpei felt as if even a nudge might cause her to shatter into 1,000 pieces. Snake was probably murdered. Chances are he was killed the same way the ninth man was. Seven lowered his voice, likely in an effort to keep Clover from hearing what he had to say. There were 4 other people in the room with Junpei and Seven: Ace, Santa, June, and Lotus. Yeah, that's everyone, right? 6 and 7, yeah, I guess. Seven looked at each of them in turn and continued. It's pretty straightforward. Not that hard to figure out how they did it. First, the killers got Snake to authenticate on the red to open door 3, and they shoved him into it alone, and waited 9 seconds for the door to shut. Once that door shut, it was over for Snake, but he didn't give up. He probably knew it wouldn't do him any good, but he probably ran into the shower room looking for the dead. It was a small chance, but it wasn't like he had anything to lose. Fortunately, it didn't work. The detonators only deactivated if everybody who authenticated when they went in uses the dead. And then 81 seconds after you were shoved in, that happened. I see. So that's what you meant by killers, huh? You need at least 3 people to open one of the numbered doors, including Snake. It wouldn't open for Snake in a single killer. Exactly. That means we're looking at multiple perps here. Junpei crossed his arms and grunted. Well, just in case, I want to make sure. Let's say you're right. When do you think Snake was killed? When we all split up to look for the parts for the Reds, I think. Right after that was when we noticed he was gone. And that means none of us have alibis. We were all off searching the rooms we'd been assigned, looking for those parts. Yeah. That means anybody could be a killer. Wait a minute. What are you talking about? June seemed shocked. How can you say one of us is a killer so casually? Well, not just one of us. If I'm right, then at least 2 of us are murderers. Why don't you calm down a bit, Seven? What are you going to gain by being so suspicious? That's what Zero wants, you know. What? Zero wants? Exactly. This game was set up by Zero, wasn't it? Any game has a winner and loser. Whoever makes it through door 9 is a winner, and those who don't are the losers. Zero's trying to make us fight against one another for that victory. Then you're saying that Zero is trying to split us up by making us fight each other? Yes. That is why we can't let ourselves fall prey to suspicion. We have to trust one another and form a strong bond of friendship. I don't trust you, Ace, otherwise we'll end up ensnared by Zero's manipulations. Then, does that mean that the person who killed Snake? Yes. Almost certainly Zero himself. If there's anyone we should doubt, it should be Zero. Can't argue with that. He's masterminded this game and kidnapped all of us. Doesn't it seem reasonable that he would have killed Snake as well? Junpei hadn't really considered that. If Zero had killed Snake, then Zero was on the ship with them. Was Zero still on the ship with them? He wasn't sure. Hey, I'm just wondering about one thing. What's that? How can you be so sure that Zero's on this ship? Ace's eyebrows shot up. Really, Junpei? I confess, I'm a little disappointed. Usually you're rather sharp. Isn't it obvious? Obvious? How so? This ship. Huh? Zero said this ship several times when he addressed us. I am Zero, the captain of this ship. Well, it could be the ship that you're on. The purpose of this game is simple: leave the ship alive. As him to surmise the ship has begun to sink. If you weren't here, he wouldn't say this ship, would he? He'd be saying something like that ship or the ship. Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. No, it doesn't. Ace's explanation made perfect sense. Junpei felt a little foolish that he hadn't seen it himself. Still, he was left with a question, and it was one of no small importance. If Zero's on the ship, where is he? Suddenly, everyone went very quiet. The silence was cold and clammy, and Junpei could feel it crawling across his back and around his throat. Again, he heard the ghosting moaning noise. And moments later, the person who looked more ghost than human appeared. Kloba! It was Clover. She looked at the floor as she spoke, and her voice was a cold monotone. I think Zero's one of us. Every human body in the room froze. The only sound was a muffled rustling of breath. Eyes darted from face to face. One of those faces was the face of their jailer. But who? Junpei said. Well, that's possible. Huh? Like Clover said, Zero might be one of us. What are you saying, Jumpy? Didn't you hear what Ace said? Yeah, I suppose Zero could set it up to where if he authenticated, he could get through any door. Exactly. I said we shouldn't suspect one another for no reason. No reason? I've got a great reason. And what's that? The bracelets. He held out his left arm. Why are the bombs in our bodies connected to the bracelets? You're all thinking Zero's hiding somewhere, watching us, right? If he's doing that, then he could just detonate the bombs by remote control if someone did something they weren't supposed to do. It would be a lot more precise and a lot easier, but if that's the case, then why is the bomb set off by the detonator in the bracelet? You got a point. I'm not done. Try applying the same ideas to the nonary game. All of the puzzles here run all by themselves. In other words, Zero doesn't have to be controlling them for the game to move forward. Why is that? Why would Zero bother to do something like that? Junpei let the question hang in the air and looked at the others. It was Santa who answered. So let's say you and Clover are right. Zero's one of us. If that's the case, then it'd be really hard for him to keep track of all of us or control anything remotely. That's why all the puzzles run by themselves. That's what you're getting at, right? Yeah. Junpei nodded. 7, when we were talking earlier, you said any one of us could be Snake's killer, right? Yeah, something like that. Alright then, I got a question for you, Ace. You said something like Zero must be the one who killed Snake, right? Yeah, something like that. Can't think of any other explanation. So what do we get if we combine those? They fit together pretty well, I think. Something like this. Whoever killed Snake is Zero, and that is one of us. 7 and Ace's theories aren't mutually exclusive. They actually complement each other pretty well. At least they do if Zero is one of us. No one spoke. Their faces were grim, but Junpei wasn't sure if they believed him or not. Finally, Lotus spoke up. What were his motives? His motives? Yes. Isn't that pretty important? Or would Zero want to hide as one of us? Oh. Well, that's because, Junpei choked. He hadn't thought of that, and he had to be honest with himself. He had no idea. Why the fuck would he kidnap 9 people and put bombs inside their body? It doesn't fucking have to make sense for it to be plausible. I don't know. Lotus sighed. Now, so much for making a persuasive argument, Junpei. In other words, you had only circumstantial evidence. It's him! I don't really think that's enough to go on, you know? Junpei was painfully aware of their eyes on him and their disapproval. He tried to find something else, anything else, to look at. Just when he felt he could bear it no longer. He could try authenticating door 7 with June or door 8 with 7. They heard a bell begin to ring. It was the clock at the central staircase. 3 in the morning. That means we have 3 hours left. Then we need to move, now. 7, Clover, Junpei? I know how you feel, but you do understand that right now it's important we trust one another, don't you? Junpei couldn't bring himself to respond. He swallowed the words he wanted to say and sighed. 7 and Clover remained similarly silent. Their eyes were looking at something somewhere else, very far away. You must go. We have very little time left. Ace's words put their feet to moving. They all knew where they were going. The next destination was Mercury. They stood in front of the elevators next to the stairs that led to the casino and the kitchen. Between the 2 elevators was a card reader with the Mercury symbol engraved on it. Junpei stood in front of it with the Mercury key card. He found the card while investigating the shower room. He took a deep breath and slid the card through the reader. It made a small beep, and the lights on the reader blinked to life. Now they were ready. 7 people, including Junpei, climbed onto the elevator. That doesn't look foreboding. Only 2 floor buttons they could push, the C and bottom buttons. The rest were destroyed or did nothing when pushed. Junpei hit the bottom button. Level it up when you're going down. The door closed. Slowly, they began to move downward. And it is there that we're going to see what happens next. So, holla.